The greatest gamer cleared the hardest game, he got transported into its world and was asked to clear it in real life. When he was given an option to return, he did not. When he was thrown into a tutorial that even the system deemed impossible to clear, he did not back away. He simply stared at the jaws of doom and thought of the strategy how to defeat it. When him and his men were surrounded by monster spiders and it feels like all hope is lost, he picks up the burning cannon himself and aims it towards the Spider Queen, searing his hands in the process. He utilized every strategy, every character, hidden tricks to successfully clear impossibility after impossibility. When you're the infamous third prince who was only known of debauchery, but awakened as the commander of humanity's battlefront, they don't just call you Ash von Heiter Ever Black. They call you the Tyrant of the defense game. Our story begins with a famous streamer named Classic Nerd as he clears one of the most difficult classic games in history called Protect the Empire, a game that was considered impossible to beat at its highest level of difficulty, the Iron Man Hell mode, ever since it was released 10 years ago. It is a tower defense and dungeon crawler game that involves defeating waves and waves of monsters and ultimately defeating the final boss. However, he was only able to clear it with every one of his units dead except for the main character, Lucas, to which he feels regretful as he and his viewers have grown attached to them. As he was talking with his viewers, a message suddenly popped up on his screen. It was the director of the game, Mr. A. The message began by thanking him and saying that he didn't think that anyone could clear the game. He then cryptically said the words, "I'm glad we still have hope." He then says that Classic Nerd is qualified and capable and seeks his help.
That is when all suddenly faded to black.
He then awakens in the middle of a battlefield, distraught and confused to what the hell just happened. Classic Nerd finds himself in a siege currently happening. Later on, he discovers that he is in the world of Protect the Empire. The worst thing is that his consciousness has been transferred to the third prince of the Everblack Kingdom, Prince Ash von Heiter Everblack, an NPC back in the game that was meant to die in the tutorial. Slowly gaining resolve to survive, he now has to command an entire army to defend the walls and people that he once viewed as nothing more than pixels in front of a screen. The basic premise is that monsters are continuously trying to invade the Everblack Empire, and at its forefront is Crossroads, the fortress city, the place where most events will take place. The lore of this manhwa goes deep as conspiracies and secrets run rampant beneath the seemingly straightforward defense game. Even Ash, or Classic Nerd, does not fully know of the several threads that goes hidden because the game has never touched upon it, which is what makes it really interesting. We see around 70% of the picture, and yet the 30% shrouded with complex mysteries is more than enough to leave you puzzled and intrigued. The lore of the monsters themselves is also worth mentioning, especially about the beings that the MC is fighting. What I felt about the Lake Kingdom when it was first introduced was that it has a vibe very similar to Souls-like games, especially Elden Ring. The dark and grim atmosphere definitely made me intrigued, and even scared about this kingdom. Now let's talk about the characters. Usually, I would talk about the characters' lives, but in this manhwa, it is imperative to put emphasis on the characters' deaths. Make no mistake, this manhwa is not your typical overpowered bullshit manhwa. People die often, and when they do, it's gonna hit you like a fucking truck desperately wanting to isekai you into another world. I love the main character's thinking and personality. He's not overpowered, so he must rely on his past strategies and knowledge that he learned from the game. He's smart and cunning, but on a very realistic degree. By no means he's a genius, but he's excellently competent. He barely has any cheats, as what he only possesses in his arsenal is a bare-bones functioning system that integrates a map function and a timer that tells you when the next siege is gonna be. But that is more than enough for Ash, although he does complain about it a lot. What I also love is that the feeling of realism in this manhwa. This series actually talks in detail about tactics and strategies that are involved in tower defenses or sieges. Ash struggles a lot and at times even have to make sacrifices in his plans. Just because he already knows the strategy for everything does not mean that everything will go according to his plan. He makes mistakes, and he learns from it because those mistakes cost lives that fall under his hands. Throughout the series, we see him grow as he ties the disconnect between playing in front of a screen compared to commanding people at the forefront of a battlefield. We see as he adapts and develops new tactics that comes with the realization that reality is vastly different from a game. What has never worked on a game can work in reality because you have far more options and freedom. Reversely, some of the strategies that he used in the game is now unavailable to him due to its nature of sacrificing or throwing away human lives to easily clear a level. He is human, and I love his greed for saving people. The moment he stepped foot on this world, he did not treat them as expendables or NPCs, but rather real people whose fate lies in his hands. He makes mistakes here and there, but he always desires for not a single person to die, even if it's ironic considering that it's a battlefield. One example of his ingenuity is right at the first chapters of the series where he was in the tutorial period. What was thought to be impossible even by the game because you were actually supposed to fail there by design was cleared by him. He was able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat by utilizing certain characters' hidden traits. Now I won't say anything anymore for spoilers because I want you guys to read it. The manhwa definitely makes you fall in love with a lot of its characters because of their personalities and goals. The contrast between their personalities when they're in the battlefield fighting for their lives, not knowing if they'll make it out, versus their personalities when they are at their downtime doing mundane activities or even interacting with other characters is definitely a sight to see, and definitely leaves you craving for more interactions. However, this only enhances that feeling of dread because this manhwa is almost a Kamiga kill level of killing off characters. There's that primal fear of not knowing whether your favorite character is gonna die or not in the next chapter. And then you start getting more and more nervous when their backstory starts showing in the next goddamn panel, in which you've realized that, holy shit, I'm cooked. The characters' deaths are handled beautifully. So crushing, heart-wrenching, depression-inducing, but beautifully. The deaths of the characters are always handled in a very special way. That might or might not be a good thing, but for me, it is. I love manhwas that can make me be emotionally invested. I want to feel and be immersed in a world where death is a common thing, and not everything will be a Disneyland ending. I also want to talk about the social issues that this manhwa actually tackles. This manhwa has racism and other forms of discrimination portrayed, but hear me out. This is what makes it really good. It shows that people are not one-dimensional and that they actually have beliefs that they think are worth fighting for, and this only enhances the whole atmosphere of the series because Ash succeeds in making this hot pot of varying personalities and ideologies unite under his banner. He fully convinces them and makes sure to abide by his promise that his banner is purely for the sake of humanity and humanity alone. That it does not matter where you're from or who you are, or hell, even if you have ulterior motives. As long as you're willing to raise arms to protect humanity, then you will always have a place in his command. He is not only charismatic but also wise in seeing through a person's heart, although him knowing them from the game beforehand also helps. As for the visuals, I would say it's okay. It's nothing grandiose like the levels that will make you cry because of its beauty, but it's certainly not ugly either. The art is what you usually see in a lot of manhwas being published today. The art is enough to keep you reading. Overall, I would say that this has certainly been one of the hidden gems that I was really pleased to discover. I am really grateful that I did not skip this just because the title and art is a bit generic and cliche. The narrative to the storytelling of its characters is anything but that. I give this manhwa a very solid 2.4 over 3 stars. Anyways, that's really about it. If you feel like watching for more of my content, then please feel free to subscribe and watch my videos right under the description. Yeah.